snap it, and it's Trey Burton who throws caught. Foles, touchdown.
Here he goes. It's Hester. Inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown.
Fields stumbling, trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown!
Hurts on first down, fires downfield. It's Deshaun Jackson back in the lineup. This is the last 7 games, and he will take it 81 yards. A somersault into the end zone. His first touchdown of the season.
You're listening to The Pigskin Project, the world's #1 football podcast. Now, with more insights on all things football, here are your hosts, Ben Hansen and Ryan Matthews.
You know, I'm going to be honest before we get started with anything. I've never thought about copyright for those clips as much as I have today. With NFL films. We will go over everything. And hopefully, the NFL won't have a problem with that if they were to see this. That's a good point. If you need any kind of rights to any of our episodes that we've used those clips, let us know and you can have them. However, we got a lot of stuff planned. We're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm happy to be back. So last week was my birthday. And so obviously I took a week off. Ben and Matt took the reins of the show and did a great job. Nonetheless, talked nice about my Bears for a week. Now for me to just come back and bash them. But Ben, I mean, I know Monday night was rough, right? It's been a couple weeks since we've talked football. Actually, no, it's not. We talk football almost daily. But recording on the internet. How are you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm gonna try not to get loud. As you guys know, I try to stay calm, cool, and collected on this podcast. It's a big thing for us to not curse on this podcast. We really try to do that, man. But I'm trying. But I am just tired of having to watch this game. And I can't imagine, again, I can't complain too much, looking at where the Bears have been the last couple of years and whatnot. But I'm getting sick of it. Last year was a historic collapse, one of the worst collapses in the history of the sport. And it was supposed to be over. You get rid of your offensive coordinator. You get rid of Matt Patricia. I thought you should have got rid of Nick Sirianni. He's still here. And then you go in to the first game, you win. It looks like everything that we would have hoped was going to happen until Monday night it happened. And now we have another historic collapse. With under 2 minutes left in the game, you had a 99.3% chance of winning the game. And again, I wanted Nick Sirianni fired last year. I want him fired again this year. I do not know what was going through his head at that point in the game. Saquon was killing it to that point. And he is not, he is to blame as well. But I do not understand why you don't just run the ball for him, hope to pick up 2 to 3 yards, and then do the push-tush, a play that they had not been able to stop as well. And Saquon's to blame. 99 times out of 100, he catches that football. Of course, he doesn't catch that football on that play because you can take Saquon out of New York. We can't take New York out of Saquon. So Saquon's, he has his blame. The coaching staff has his blame. Howie has his blame. We had talked about the whole Jahan Dotson stuff on the podcast when the traded went down. You get him for situations like this just to get him the ball a single time. He had one touch the entire game. And that's not to talk about all the amount of.
Nope. He's mad enough to where. There we go. Hopefully. Yeah, there you go.
Hopefully.
Continue.
Hopefully,
yeah. Maybe.
He has 3 first-round picks in Jordan Davis at defensive tackle, Jalen Carter at defensive tackle, Nolan Smith there. None of them were able to produce. Then you add in the fact you went out and you added a dude for $17 million a year, Bryce Huff. I see why he wears 0 now. Bryce Huff has 0 sacks in the first 2 games, 0 quarterback hits, 0 hurries, 0 tackles for loss, and 0 solo tackles. He is my generation's Eagles version of Nandi. I don't understand how this continues to happen. And the fact that the defensive line could not get any pressure is concerning. Thomas Booker, a dude we picked up off of waivers last year, looked the best for us, and he played 9 snaps and led the team for tackle for loss. I don't understand how this continues to happen. And then you go and you look on the back end of this defense, and a guy that I had preached on this podcast numerous times that maybe our secondary was going to be fine because you draft the first-round pick in Quinyon Mitchell, and he looked fine in this game. And Darius Slay, who out his entire career has been around a top 10 cornerback since he stepped foot on the football field. And when you're out there, you have those two guys. And who did the Falcons decide to target? Not the rookie. They targeted Darius Slay on that touchdown to win the game because he was standing there with his thumb up his
his Wi-Fi censoring him. That's awesome.
Yeah. Drake London, 5 yards of separation here. And I'm sick and tired of it. All right. As you guys know, I try to be the optimistic one on this team. But at what point can I stop making excuses for this team? And again, I understand as an Eagles fan, for the most part, I live a cushy life. We were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I could be way worse. I could be a Panthers fan, for example. I could be a Giants fan. I could be a Bears fan. But for such high expectation for going into the season and through the first 12 games of last season, I'm getting sick of making excuses for this team and for the coaching staff. And I love Howie, but right now it is not looking good for him. And it is frustrating. And the only thing that is holding me together is the fact that the Cowboys, the Cowboys, the Lions, and the Niners lost. That's the only thing holding me together. And yes, it seems like it's an overreaction. I understand it's 2 weeks into the season. A lot can change, as I had talked about with the historic collapse. So this is by far not the end of it, but I'm getting to a point where I'm getting sick watching this football team. Like, they are emotionally hurting me, which is not fun. And I'm sure you as a Bears fan, understand that one. But
I've had the same conversation with you, but about the Bears instead of the Eagles, man. Yeah, I get it.
I just can't make excuses. And what sucks about it too is the fact that AJ was hurt, and this is the best that Jalen Hurts has looked since 2022 when it comes to ball placement and to how well he looked on the ground as a runner. It sucked that this team actually somewhat looked okay without the top 3 wide receiver, top 5, wherever you want to rank him in the NFL.
Yeah.
And you still managed to fumble that away. And we lead the league since 2013 in 2-minute blown losses. We have 4 2-minute blown losses. I'm getting sick of it. And hopefully this is the year for it to change, because if it doesn't, it is going to become very, very messy. But not to harp on it. We have a lot to get into. We have a guest on the podcast.
Yes. So before I bring in our guest, I just want to say, so this is the story about how this kind of unfolded, right? So I had the privilege of going to West Lafayette, Indiana to do a broadcast for my broadcast company that I work for, and be able to broadcast for West Lafayette High School against Lowell High School. And I'm working with a very talented group of individuals on the broadcast themselves. And one of those individuals is Mr. Todd Kibbe. So shout out to him, just in case he's watching, because the man's he's a great guy altogether. I've learned a lot from him, and I cannot wait to begin my next chapter of my career as well, in inspiration of him as well. But through Todd, I got to know our guest of tonight, just because, I heard that he had gone to school with Todd, and as a result, he said, "Hey, that goofball down there with a camera, I think we should go say hi to him." And I was like, "Hey, maybe, I don't know." And so we went and said hi. Turns out that this individual works for NFL Films. I started to chat him up just a little bit, but this was right before our broadcast. And I said, "Hey, you're a great guy. I really appreciate it." He let me hold the camera, by the way, which was cool in itself. But he told me, he said, hey, I'd love to exchange information and stuff and get to talk to you a little bit more. I said, I got one better. We can absolutely exchange information, but I have this pretty cool podcast that I've been working on with my buddy Ben, and I think that you should hop on. So without further ado, we figured out a time that we can get him on. We're going to interview him here shortly. This is Mr. Kaline Schounce from NFL Films. Welcome into the Pigskin Project.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Enjoying it.
Thank you very much for popping on, man. So
Ben, you got 15 more games. You got to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just sick of.
They're pretty good.
They are good. It was if you were to hear what had happened on the podcast the last few weeks of last season, it was a collapse. It was not good for my mental health.
Last year was bad. I get it. Well, I'm a lifelong Lions fan, so I hold my breath every week, even after last year. And then this past Sunday, when they just did not look good, I was like, oh my gosh, are we going back to what we've always been? But I think they'll turn it around this week, hopefully. I'm hoping at least. We'll see.
Lions fan on the podcast. I think that's a first.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So I know that we talked briefly at the game about some of your assignments as of recently, but I don't want to steal your thunder, man. I think that you should be able to tell everybody about the different games and stuff that you've had the privilege of being able to work.
Okay. Yeah. So this is my 29th year. I'm a freelancer. I'm a full-time staffer at NFL Films, but this is my 29th year shooting sidelines for them. I've done 20 Super Bowls. I do mostly Colts home games now. It used to be I'd go everywhere. It's become since COVID, it's become a little bit more of a regional situation where they have people almost in every city. So I don't travel nearly as much as I used to, which is okay. But I'm doing the Colts game this weekend. They have your Bears, so that should be a good game. That should be a good matchup. I'm looking forward to that. Do a lot of college football. I'm working on a show called Here Come the Irish. It's on Peacock, and so I'm doing all the Notre Dame home games. And when I say doing them, I'm shooting sideline action, slow-mo action, just the typical NFL film style where you see you're tight on the player, tight on the ball, tight on the tackle, followed into the hands of the receiver or the fumble or the interception, that kind of thing. That's the style that I've always done, even since I first got out of school a long, long time ago. So that's kind of what I'm up to. I do a lot of other stuff, but as far as Pigskin goes, I'll probably do some Big Ten stuff this year as well. I work for Big Ten Network sometimes when we get later in the year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. There's a show called The Journey on Big Ten Network, and it's a hard knock style show on the Big Ten for student athletes and the coaches and the teams and the games and the fans. So that's kind of my football background. When I shot local news, I would do 3 high school games on a Friday night driving around. On Saturdays, I'd do an IU, Purdue, or Notre Dame game. And then on Sundays, I'd do a Colts game or whatever. So a lot of football, that's for sure.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this just to get the big question I've been dying to ask you as well since we met. Yeah. So, obviously, you said you've worked a lot of big games. What have been probably, if you could give me a top 3, because I know you've worked a lot of games, and just saying what's your favorite one is a hard question. If you can give me your top 3 with even a story of one of them, I'd be privileged to listen in.
I'll start with the first one. The Colts Super Bowl when they beat the Bears. Sorry about that, but when it was in Miami and it rained all day before the game, but it rained constantly throughout the game. It wasn't a great game. Neither team looked that great, but it was more of a war of attrition. And Dominic Rhodes should have been the MVP of that game and not Manning, because he ran for like 115 yards and they dominated on the ground. That's how they won that game. But the highlight of that for me was the Prince halftime show. And I'm a huge Prince fan. And back then, with a field credential, you could just walk up to the stage. Now it's a whole different thing. There's zones that you can't go. But I was standing right next to the stage. It was pouring down rain, and Prince was playing, and that was fantastic. As an old Prince fan I graduated high school and college in the 80s. So that shows you how far I go back. But that was great. The other one was definitely when the Giants beat the Patriots, because the Patriots were 18-0 at that point, or 19-0 at that point. 19-0,
Yeah.
whatever they were.
Yeah.
They were undefeated. They were the juggernaut. That was the helmet catch when Manning threw to Tyree. I happen to if you see NFL film shots of that, probably the main shot they use is my shot, I think.
Wow.
I just happen to be in the right spot.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of great angles, but the one that's ground level, it was pretty much right in front of me, and I follow the ball, and he catches it and comes down. That's one of my better shots. Trying to think of another one. I'd say that just because I live in Indianapolis, I'd say the Super Bowl here was great because I had a week of work. The weather, it was in the 50s all week. The vibe was great. People were like, "Why are we in Indianapolis?" And then the town really showed out. And the Giants beat the Patriots again. So that anytime the Patriots get beat is a good thing in my mind. So
yes.
that'll be my top 3 Super Bowl moments.
That's awesome. So another thing that we were able to talk about that Friday was your ability to work at the combine. Now, everybody that has been following for quite a long time knows that we've been going to the combine for the last few years. I would say this is going to be our 4th year going, I think. Yeah. So, we've had the privilege of going. Obviously, you would know that there's the free admission as well that they're giving. So that's what we've had the privilege of doing. Actually, fun fact, because I didn't get to tell you this as well, the moment that we secured tickets to go to the combine for the first time, we, in a 30-second span, probably found out that we could go to the combine and then got the tickets all on air at the Pigskin Project. And you could see Ben's reaction. And keep in mind, that's like we said off air, or maybe even on air, I don't know. But that Ben is the college football guy. His reaction was probably one of the most priceless things on this episode. I wish I had clipped it. But I guess, my question to you is, could you tell us a little bit more about what you do specifically during the combine and,
Sure.
Exactly what your experience is like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's interesting. I started covering the combine. I worked at the NBC affiliate in Indianapolis in the early 90s. And back then, the combine, it's amazing how it has morphed into what it is, because it used to be we would stand in the lobby at the Crowne Plaza Hotel and just wait for the college players and the agents to walk in. Most of them stayed there, or they'd stay at the Hyatt. It was before a lot of the large hotels were in town. And it was at the Hoosier Dome, the RCA Dome. And we would just stand around, and we would get every big name player. They would just walk through the lobby. It's a whole different animal now. There's so many layers of people to go through to get access. It's a mini Super Bowl. I mean, you guys are there, right? It's like a Radio Row just for the combine. Whereas it used to just be, they'd show up. I remember vividly working for NFL Films and filming something with Al Davis in the stands. And he was like, "Who are you with?" And I'm like, "I'm with NFL Films, Mr. Davis." He's like, "Oh, okay, you're all right." Because there were virtually no cameras in there. They didn't film any of the drills. They didn't even there was no live presence anywhere.
Wow.
It was a closed combine. There were no fans. It was just evaluators, coaches, and players. And to see what it is now, it's amazing. And the draft is the same way. The NFL is 24/7, 365 now. It's unbelievable. And to spawn podcasts like yours with people interested in the sport, it's pretty amazing. But my experience now is it's a lot different. And what I've done the last several years is, instead of I've shot the drills for NFL Films or shot features behind the scenes, but I've shot a lot of stuff. If you guys see, like, when ESPN has their draft coverage, they do those intro panels of the players where they're posing and there's lights flashing and smoke and all that stuff. That's what I've been doing the last probably 7-8 years. I've been shooting a lot of that stuff for
That's
ESPN. Cool. So I haven't been out on the field of play probably in 8 or 9 years. So I've been behind the scenes where they bring players. There's a huge list. They bring us the guys, and we have a bunch of Nike stuff or whatever the apparel provider is that year. And then they suit them out and they do their cool little poses and throw the ball and, look badass and all that stuff. So, but to answer your question, I guess that's a long-winded way to do it. The way I've seen it change, it's unbelievable. It went from something that somebody just kind of talked about a little bit, and then you paid attention at the draft, to now it's a 5-day wall-to-wall coverage of guys in their underwear running sprints and lifting weights. It's pretty amazing.
So I'll ask you a question and then see if I can ask a follow-up question to this. Okay. Were you at this year's draft in Detroit?
No, I haven't been to a draft for 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
I would have loved to have been up there because I'm a huge Lions fan, and it looks like they showed up pretty well.
I was going to say, so we were actually at the draft. Yeah. We weren't, unfortunately, we were like not even 10 minutes away from actually being a part of the crowd. We drove the full amount to go to Detroit the day of the first round. And we were just going to stay for the first round and then make our way back for day 2. But we got an Airbnb and everything, showed up to Detroit, dropped off all of our stuff at Airbnb, Ubered to where the site is for the draft. And as soon as we pulled up, all of the big screens were saying that all of the general admission. Yep. All the general admission things were closed down. All the gates were closed. So we drove, 4.5 hours to go and watch it in an Airbnb together. So
well, for you, but another extra 3 hours for me.
You go back to the house and sitting there watching on TV. That's not great.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
I was so have you worked a draft before?
Oh yeah. I've worked in ones Chicago, New York, Nashville. I've done one more. And like what I've usually done on those is it's almost always a behind the scenes thing where, NFL Films does all this content, they do all this programming, and a lot of times it would be behind the scenes. Like I remember when it was at Radio City Music Hall for years and years and years, we would always do a behind the scenes of a person. Let's say it's a ticket manager or a security person or catering or what, we would and we would also shoot stuff with the players, but I seem to always get the assignments where we'd shoot behind the scenes, like human interest features, and then they would put that into the full draft documentary. They would weave the storyline in. It's like, here's Melvin Gordon, this great running back from Wisconsin. Here's what he's doing today, and then boom, you cut to the kitchen and the guy's cutting tomatoes or something, and getting ready for catering and for the dignitaries and the VIP. So that's kind of been my experience. I mean, I've been there on the stages and stuff, but I've never done the live camera stuff. And I've never actually been on the stage during the draft itself, but mostly behind the scenes stuff. But you can still feel it. It's just, the electricity and the excitement, especially for the, those first 10 picks, is pretty cool.
Oh, for sure. Another thing, so bringing up just overall, your experience at Radio City Music Hall, one of the things that I thought of, and I don't know, Ben, if you thought of it as well, but, when I think of Radio City Music Hall, obviously I'll think of the draft, but I'll also think of the movie Draft Day, okay? That brought up all together. I understand that NFL Films doesn't just do the combine, the draft, and games, but I also know they also do some kind of like documentaries and movies as well, such as I know Hard Knocks is another things as well that I know HBO kind of does a little bit more of now, but I don't know exactly as far as camera work goes, how much NFL Films has their hand in the pot for. So how much of that have you had experience with, and what have you been included with in your years of work?
I've worked on 13 Hard Knocks.
Oh, wow.
And usually the stints I would do, I'd do 3 weeks at a time. They kind of do the freelancers in shifts. It's like a 6 to 8 week shoot for camp. And I would usually do the last 3 weeks. So I was always there for cut downs, the final cut downs, which was always really touchy and sometimes a bummer because you get to know these guys a little bit. And, this undrafted free agent who's worked his butt off doesn't make it, But then all of a sudden he's on the practice squad. So there's like this reprise for the guy, They do all kinds of stuff. They've got a partnership with some Hollywood folks. They do a lot of stuff with Omaha Productions, which is the Manning's production company. I've gotten a lot of work through my affiliation with NFL Films. I worked on not the movie, but the episodic version of Friday Night Lights that was on NBC. I shot second unit football on that for years, and that was great, going to Austin. And we'd go in at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon and then shoot through the night. And that was a great experience. And I worked on a couple feature films shooting, and it was always second unit football. I was never on first unit, the narrative, the dialogue. but we would shoot football, and we would just shoot football. I mean, we got there, we were specialty shooters because of our skill and our expertise and just experience. With the NFL, we would get those jobs. I worked on a movie called The Game Plan, which was a rock movie. It was a Disney movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
We shot that at Foxborough. We shot that at Gillette Stadium. And then one called Two for the Money. You've probably never heard of this one. It was Matthew McConaughey, Al Pacino, and Rene Russo. Didn't meet Al or Rene, but we threw the ball around with McConaughey one day when he was there one day doing dialogue, and that was in Vancouver at BC Place.
Is he as cool as he seems, by the way?
Totally. He was so cool. Yeah. He was like, they said he had driven his truck up and pulled an Airstream up from LA, and he was parked down by the river in Vancouver, down by the bay in Vancouver. And he walked in, he was every bit what you would think he would be. We threw the football around. He was there for like 2 or 3 hours doing his lines, and then he was out.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
So now here's where the fan part comes in comes out of us, right? So through your years of experience, it sounds like you've met a lot of really cool people, right? Mm-hmm. Player-wise, who have been your favorite interactions? And I mean, can you name anything, even if it's even, longer away, or if it's been fairly recent, who's been really cool?
I've gotten to know mostly Colts because I've done so much Colts stuff. Andrew Luck is the best. He's probably the best that I've ever been around. I was fortunate to go. So his dad was the GM of, I think, the Frankfurt Fire in the old World League. You guys may not even be old enough to remember the old World League, but they had six teams. There were London, Barcelona, Frankfurt, Amsterdam. I forget where they all were. But his dad, Oliver, was the GM. And then the next year, and Andrew was like middle school, I think, elementary, middle school age. And then he was the commissioner of the World League of Football. His dad was. So he was in Germany a lot, and he's a pretty smart guy, and I think he still speaks pretty good German. So the NFL Network hired me. It wasn't Films, it was NFL Network, and they were doing an NFL streaming platform. This was years ago. This was going on probably 10 years ago. And they were launching it in Munich. And so we went over there. We were there like 5 days. And I was lucky enough to bring my son with me, who was a huge Andrew Luck fan. So that was cool. And 50 German fans got to meet Andrew at the Olympic Stadium. They had a drawing, and he threw the football around with them and spoke some German. He wasn't fluent or anything like that. We went to a Bayern Munich Man United game, or Man City. I can't remember. It was one of the Manchester teams, to a European football game. So that was cool. And he couldn't have been nicer. He was really nice to my son. He was nice to everybody, and just a solid dude. Luck is probably my favorite. And that's Adam awesome. Vinatieri is a really cool guy. I got to know him a tiny bit. And obviously Pat McAfee. That's what I was everybody knows Pat, right? So he's definitely as advertised as well.
That's awesome.
Oh, I bet.
My last question for you, unless Ben, okay. So
you cover them.
No problem. So I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the overseas stuff. So over the years, obviously the NFL has been able to cover games that are overseas. Mm-hmm. Have you had the privilege of going overseas to any of them?
I have not. I would love to go to London. I mean, I've done a lot of Olympic coverage. So I've been to Brazil many times for World Cup and for Olympics. I've been to London several times too, but I would love to go to an American football game in London at on a proper football pitch. I would love that. They haven't invited me yet. I'm not sure why, but I haven't. But I would like to, and I think within 10 years they'll have a team in London. There will be a team in London.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Maybe Barcelona. I don't know where the other one would be. Munich or Barcelona, maybe, or Paris. It's hard to say.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time and everything. We're going to go ahead, and I know, we're going to have you along for the rest of the episode, but, as everybody else kind of gets an introduction to you, I think that that's a pretty awesome way of getting to know you as well. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time with us. And then not only that, but
thank you.
Let's dive in and have a little bit more fun, shall we?
Okay. Thanks.
Ryan and Ben bring you weekly news.
All right. So it's not just us, we got a guest on.
Yes.
So So
Injuries.
A lot of injuries. Oh my goodness. So the big ones that I guess I'm just going to cover the IR list. And if I leave out anybody, Ben, please let me know. The biggest one I would say, arguably, I mean, you've got CMC in here as well. But that was kind of expected. But the one that's kind of out of left field and is going to trigger a little bit more conversation for sure is going to be Tua Tagovailoa because of the hit on Thursday night. Now, Ben, I know you and I have talked a little bit, obviously off the air about this one. I do kind of feel pretty passionate about this one just because, after so many head injuries to so many players, obviously you don't want their career to come to an end at, the hands of something like that. But I guess my question to you guys is, at what point do you settle down and take yourself out of the game for your family, especially after he's got so much guaranteed money in that contract? Ben, I'll let you start.
I mean, this would be the time for him to do it. I mean, if you're gonna pull yourself out and you've decided that enough is enough, now is to do it. There's not gonna be a point to go back out there, risk another injury like that happening. Again, for those who aren't, quite familiar with what Ryan's talking about, Tua had almost crunched his head into the chest and shoulder pad of DeMar Hamlin, and then it activated that fencing response. For those who don't know, that's when the arms tighten up like that and they kind of come off the ground in tense. And now this will be the third time that something like that has happened. I'm with you. At a certain point, you got to call it. He had signed that big contract. He has a good portion of that being guaranteed. But I can understand the hesitation as to why he hasn't made that call yet. I mean, he has spent his entire life, training and practicing and doing everything he could to get here. And I can understand why it's a hard decision for him to make. But at the end of the day, you really just got to start, keeping your family in mind and your health in mind. And, that stuff has to come first, I think.
Yeah. So, Kaline?
Well, the first thing, I think it was brilliant to put him on IR so they have 4 weeks to decide, and he has a time to heal up. The doctors have time to really examine him better, and he's going to be able to reflect. It's a huge life decision. These guys have a 4.5 to 5 year window on average to play the game, and it's so brutal, so violent, so fast. I think he's a great kid. I think he's a great talent. It'd be a shame for him not to be able to play again. But it is to the tipping point, that's for sure. It's the last one certainly, viscerally wasn't like the first two a couple of years ago. But when you compound those two on this one, it maybe is worse. It's a shame if he has to quit, and in some ways, it might be a shame if he decides to continue, because then you're just holding your breath, waiting for the next hit, and it's probably going to be a hard way for the team to play, to game plan, to scheme, and for him to just go balls out and play as hard as he wants to go. So I hope he makes the right decision. But there's so much money involved. You guys touched on it.
Exactly.
If he walks away and the doctors have cleared him, I think he leaves $120 million on the table.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. That's going to be tough, regardless of your health. So I think he's going to pocket 42. These are general numbers. I don't really know the exact, but it's big money.
A lot. Yeah.
Big money for the Dolphins, big money for him and his family, generational wealth. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I just pray he makes the right decision for his health,
Absolutely. Yeah. And us too. Going on, obviously we touched on Christian McCaffrey a little bit. Hollywood Brown is also on the Chiefs IR. And then speaking of Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco has also landed on the IR. Which
that's my
as
fault.
A side note, yeah. So, Kaline, I know you're not familiar with that one. It's an inside joke between Ben and I, because no matter what, it seems like every year Ben drafts a running back on his fantasy team. It's always bound to happen. There's always, he drafted Bijan, and I told him he should trade him to me so we can have him have a good year.
So he
won't do it. But
it's bad. Going back 2 years ago, for some context on this one too. I had traded for Brian Robinson from Ryan, and I had traded for him. And then that next day is when he had
literally
shot.
12 hours later he got shot.
Yeah, he had gotten shot.
It's just Ben's luck.
It's like, I don't know what it is. I have this awful like looming cloud of cursed running backs above me. Like,
not to
so
mention,
if your running back, you know, for your team that you're rooting for is on my fantasy team, I apologize.
I'm glad you can't draft me.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know what happened, but I'm glad you can't.
Yeah. I mean, he's had anywhere from that same year, that 2-year draft.
Oh my God.
Kenneth Walker, also, I think he like tore his Achilles or ACL or something. Javonte Williams, who tore his ACL that year. And then he had Brian Robinson, and then I believe there was one more.
Chubb last year.
That was also me. I traded him.
I traded for Nick Chubb, and then 3 days later, his knee injury had happened. I had Todd Gurley both of the 2 years that he had really messed up his knees. It is just
and it's only it's only the running backs. It's not a wide receiver, not a quarterback. Always the running back specifically.
It can't be an ankle sprain. It's got to be a broken tibia.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And Ben, I feel your pain because I had to drop him. I had to drop him myself.
Oh man,
yeah,
it's horrible. So. The last two that I want to touch on, Cooper Kupp, it seems like it's a little more extreme than what we had anticipated.
Well, he's not on IR though yet.
He's not? I thought I read that.
Yeah. So they had done a wave of guys on IR, or I think they put 2 or 3 guys on IR, but he was not one of them. Oddly, a lot of people had speculated that he was going to go on IR, but he did not. So. Hopefully the timetable for him is a little bit shorter than what we.
You guys have seen this though. That ankle is just going to nag him and nag him and nag him.
He's played only one full healthy season in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this one for both of you guys that'll actually be there in person. This one's kind of a huge impact. As much as I would like to be there, unfortunately I can't. But DeForest Buckner is out for the Colts, and that's a huge hit to their defensive line as well.
Huge.
I mean, I hate to be that optimistic Bears fan, but like if there was ever a time for the O-line, especially the interior, to get it right,
and Latu's hurt,
second string, and Latu is also hurt. Well. Yeah, so lots of big injuries, and it's not anything that you want to see specifically in the beginning of the year. The first 2 weeks is horrible to see something like this.
Yeah.
And another thing as well, Jamar Chase has no plans to negotiate a long-term deal with the Bengals this season, and believes the Bengals misled him during the offseason as well.
Mm-hmm.
This one is starting to kind of get a little touchy. I feel like this is going to be one of two things. It's either going to be the Brandon Ayuk situation all over again, or for some reason, I want to say, gosh, who was it? I had an idea in my mind. Maybe it was Tyreek Hill, who was about to get paid and he ended up getting traded. And all of this in consideration, T. Higgins still has not gotten paid yet. He's hurt.
Well, he's on the tag.
Right. I mean, the tag is one thing.
They have to decide whether or not, obviously, as a fan, as a GM, you don't have enough money to keep both T and Chase, but it really comes down to they're going to do everything in their power to get Chase that contract. Like you were saying, though, man, it's starting to toe that line of the Brandon Ayuk stuff that, we had talked about it all offseason. Is he going to get traded? Is he going to get paid? And I don't think the Bengals obviously have any plan of trading him. But the whole contract situation is starting to toe that line. But on the flip side of that, if something does go south with the Jamar Chase stuff, and again, I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does start to go south, I expect the GM for the Bengals to swiftly get a contract done for T.
This next line, I want to make sure to go over with both of you guys. Panthers quarterback Bryce Young has been benched, and Andy Dalton will start until further notice. Kaline, I'll start with you. How do you feel about this move? Huge for the Panthers.
Yeah, it's amazing. Dalton's been a good pro, but I think if the problems run a lot more deep than the quarterback play. Even a second to breathe. He doesn't have a lot of help on the perimeter. The run game is not solid because they're not solid up front. That's just a systemic dysfunction that entire organization. So it's surprising, but I mean, the kid's confidence is crushed. Maybe he can take a step back for a couple of weeks. Who knows what happens with Andy? Hopefully he doesn't get hurt, but if he gets knocked out, Young comes back in. I don't know what 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or I don't know what's going to fix that situation.
No.
I mean, I think if Bryce Young would have gone to Texas, Houston, and CJ Stroud would have gone to Carolina, who knows what you would have seen. That's just conjecture, but CJ's been great and Young hasn't had a chance. So I certainly don't disagree with it. The kid's not playing great. I mean, Dalton, it doesn't seem like Dalton could do any worse. And I don't know how bad that team's going to end up being, but they're not good.
I think at this point, they're just looking for veteran leadership in one way, shape, or form. And I don't think that that's a bad direction to lead. However, Ben, before I get to you, I just want to say that, we were talking about it a little bit during the day, and Kaline, I want your perspective on this as well. If there's anything, and I doubt that they make this move. In fact, I believe that it's already come out and said that they're not even thinking about it. But if you are the GM of the Panthers, there are a lot of teams in this league that could use a young kid like Bryce Young. Do you think about moving him?
You're not going to, I don't know. I don't think you're going to even get enough draft value for him that it's even worth giving up on him at this point. Again, you guys are basically taking the words out of my mouth at this point. There's not much more I can say from the situation. But at this point, 2 years in to trade him for a 6th-round pick or a 5th-round pick, it's not worth it to give up on him for that minimal amount of draft value. Really, where I'm interested in, and he had come out and he had said something, I'm wondering, and obviously it's all dependent on Andy Dalton and his play. Tannehill's still out there too, man. I wouldn't be surprised if Dalton looks bad if they try to go and at least save the season a little bit and even give Tannehill a chance. So,
well, I agree with that, but they gave up 2 1s and 2 2s for Bryce Young.
Exactly.
And DJ Moore.
And DJ. So it's like you can't, I don't know how long you can sit him. Obviously, the ownership down there runs things a lot differently than most people do, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
And it's not working out very well for them. Like Ben said, what are you going to get? A 3rd or a 4th for it? You're going to get 1 pick, maybe.
Yeah.
The only upside for that is he's a very good player. He needs the right situation. Needs to get his confidence back. And the rookie deal, he's still relatively cheap. He's as cheap as he's ever going to be if he progresses. If he's not a backup the rest of his career. So, well, they said they're not going to trade him, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Sunday night they said he wasn't going to be benched as well. So who knows?
Yeah. It's a league of, dare I say it's a league of liars? You know what I mean? So we'll see. The last point that I want to reach on, it's not really all that much to talk about, but he's still my boy and I'm rooting for him. Justin Fields is set to start week 3 versus Chargers. Obviously as a Bears fan, and it's more than just, we want the better pick. I'm still rooting for Justin Fields. I think everybody is at this point. I don't think anybody was really rooting on his downfall except for maybe Packers fans, or Lions fans, right, Kaline? But anyways,
I like Justin. I like him a lot.
But that's really it, for weekly news. And, hopefully this week we see less injuries. Obviously week in and week out, we want teams to get healthier and healthier, but unfortunately that's just not the case. And it's really weird recently as well with the passing game. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, we've got a couple more segments to get to. So why don't we go ahead and get to our next one?
Okay. Just when you thought it was safe to play the underdog, we put you on Upset Alert.
So Upset Alert. Ben and I have picked our teams for this week. And so what I'm going to do is kind of give a little bit of a twist on it, on whether or not you're with us or against us. Okay. So what we'll do, I'll go through mine and then you can tell us if there's any of them that you think, and thinking about this now, you're not going to like one of them, but, going through, I think that if you were to just pick a couple of them, if you agree with them, we'll see how we do. So, Ben, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, and really quickly, this past week, I think it was something like there was 9 upsets or 9 like underdogs who have like outright won the game. So there was a lot of upsets and underdogs winning and unexpectedness. So the NFL, again, as Ryan touched on too, is in a weird spot, especially with the offense and the passing not quite being where we would have all thought. So again, it's who knows, it's still a young season. I got 3 for you guys here. Ryan, you'll actually be happy about this one. The first one I got for you guys is the Bears over the Colts. As you talked about, I think the Bears had really struggled with the pass rush going on here, and with a lot of those big pieces not playing for the Colts this week, I think the Bears actually have a chance to win this one. And then also that defense, I mean, I will say probably shut down Anthony Richardson. I mean, that Packers defense was giving him fits last week. So, and then speaking of the Packers, I got the Packers versus Titans. It could be the Malik Willis revenge game. Don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Titans will probably pull this one out. Hopefully, Will Levis doesn't make a stupid turnover for the 3rd game in a row. I don't know what that was last week. It was just awful. And then the last one is the Chargers versus the Steelers. Jim has just been on fire. J.K. Dobbins has been running with his hair on fire. And the Steelers have scored a whopping 1 touchdown through the first 2 games. So those are my 3 upsets. Do you like any of them?
I'm going to take the Packers over the Titans. Are you just talking straight up? You're not talking about the
just right? Straight up.
Yeah. I think the Packers. I'll take the Packers. I'm also going to take. I think if the Colts can run the ball, they'll beat the Bears. But the Colts have given up almost 500 yards on the ground in 2 games. So if the Bears can run the ball, they will. If the Bears can control the ball, they will win. Take some pressure off Caleb. I think they'll win. I think Malik has another good game. I think he progresses and gets better. I think they win. And what was the third one? I'm sorry.
Chargers and Steelers. And then the Chargers upsetting the Steelers.
I will take that. I agree with that. Yes.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
So Ben actually took 3 of mine. As expected. I mean, normally we do, but I came prepared because I still have 3. So obviously I had the Bears as well. You already touched on it. I think the Bears, obviously, I think they're going to win that game. I'm not just being biased. This defense is top 3 rated right now. This defense is absurd and exceeding every expectation that I had. And I'm just not a big fan of the Colts team. So we'll see. The first one that I want to hit on is Thursday night's game. So tomorrow night / today, if you guys are listening on streaming platforms the day after we record this, the Patriots and Jets. The Jets are favorited. I think the Patriots might be able to pull this one off because their defense has been pretty stout for the last couple weeks. Next up, the Texans and Vikings. Now, speaking of good defense, the Vikings are like right up there statistically with the Bears. They definitely have a top 10 defense. And another reason why I picked this is just because the Texans offense, their injury report looked a little iffy. Now I understand it's still early on in the week. We've still got 3 more days of practice to get through before any kind of, game injuries are even released. But you've got Tank Dell that's on there right now that did not participate today. You've got Joe Mixon that was wrapped up in a pretty ugly ankle injury this past Sunday night. So, just something to think about. And not only that, Sam Darnold is playing good football in Minnesota. So I think that, the Vikings can at least keep it close. But, I expect, I probably would pick the Texans just to be safe. But I think the Vikings could pull this off, and that's why the Texans are on upset alert. Okay. Last but not least, I'm putting your Lions on upset alert because this past Sunday, looking at the Cardinals offense and what Kyler Murray was able to do, this man balled out. That was so much fun to watch. And Marvin Harrison Jr. looked great. And if I'm a Lions fan, I'm pretty scared of Marvin Harrison Jr. and what he's able to do. Because I believe if you looked back at that press conference and what he had to say about the game, he said Kyler had 3 incomplete passes in the first half, and that was all to me. So I think I could have played better. Dude had 2 touchdowns in the first half. How much better do you want to be? And so I love the mentality. Of course, Ohio State fan as well. So of course I'm going to be a little biased, but his mentality going into it as well. This is a kid that's going to do nothing but grow in this league. I expect him to be a top 3 wide receiver. That Lions defense, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson getting, 2 or 3 sacks in the first half. I want to say it was 2 in the first half. And that guy's a monster. This is going to be a good game no matter what. Man. But I expect the Cardinals, who are doing a good job on defense as well, to be able to stop the Lions again for the second week in a row and put Kaline into an absolute spiral. I don't know. What are we thinking?
Well, I'm used to them losing, so it wouldn't spiral me. But it's
not like me.
I think it's great for Arizona that Kyler Murray realized that Marvin Harrison Jr. is on his team.
Yeah.
And was able to find him in the game too. So that was good. I will take my Lions at home because I cannot pick against them. I think Minnesota is going to win at home.
Nice.
Simply because I think Jefferson and Darnold are hitting on all cylinders right now. And like you said, the injury report, like guys are banged up. I'm sorry. What was the first game? I
Patriots,
the first
Jets. Yeah.
I'm going to take Rodgers. Are they in Foxborough or are they in New Jersey?
They're in Foxborough, yeah.
Jersey.
Or I'm sorry, New Jersey. I'm sorry. They're in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I know Rodgers isn't part of this rivalry, this long-time AFC rivalry. He's new to it. I just have a feeling he'll do something late, some magic late to show his worth and kind of make up for lost time with the Jets. So I'll take the Jets.
Cool. And with that, we get started on our next segment as well.
You think you know football? Well, prove it. This is Pigskin Pick'em.
All right, so this is the most fun part of the whole episode, right? We get to pick week by week who's going to win. And we're going to start with Thursday Night Football, and I'll just go down the line as far as list of names and how I've got them. So I'll go ahead and start off. I have the Jets winning this week.
Do you want to go over the record from last week real quick?
Oh, absolutely. So last week, Ben and I, actually everybody tied. We went 9-7 across the board, which is crazy just because, if the Eagles had won, then Matt and I would have actually, no, after the Bears and Texans game on Sunday night, all of us were tied. And no matter what happened on Monday night, we were going to tie as well.
Yeah.
So we went 9-7 across the board. And for the year so far, I am up against Ben. My record is 20-11, and Ben is 16-15. So we're
pushing for the comeback. We're pushing
20-11. That's pretty good. Dang.
Hey, you say that now, but I will have my midseason crash.
It's early.
It always happens. Ryan always takes a lead on me, and I always chip away at it throughout the year. And the last 2 seasons, I've come out victorious on that.
Well, if you feel like you're not doing well and you're still 16-15, that's pretty good.
I will say Ben has beat me in the last 2 years that we've been doing this. So, because the first year that we started the podcast was right in the dead middle of the playoffs when the Rams and Bengals were in the Super Bowl. So, now that we're starting it over again, I'm trying to start off hot so this man can't beat me. Okay.
Right.
So,
Go to lead, pat a lead.
Yeah. So I have the Jets winning at home against the Patriots week 1. Ben, who do you got?
Yeah, I have the Jets winning.
And then Kaline, I would assume Jets as well.
Aaron Rodgers, I'll take him.
Not a bad bet. Giants at Browns. I'm taking the Browns. Ben?
Yeah, no, I'm going to take the Browns, and I will never bet the Giants to win for the rest of the season. I can confidently say that.
I think I'm right there with you. Kaline?
I'm going to say Giants in an upset.
Giants in an
upset.
I love it. All right. Colts and Bears. You already know who I'm picking. Ben? I mean, you're going to be there.
So I'm not going to be there.
You're not?
I had to change of plans. No.
Oh, he was planning on it at least.
Next. I was originally planning on it. I had actually bought the tickets. I had to sell them. But I'll get into it why next week as to why I wasn't. Oh, good reasons as to why. Nothing bad. This takes a lot for me to say the Bears. I'm gonna have the Bears win this one. For those who are confused by that, I was really high on the Colts going into the year. I was pretty, hard set that the Colts were gonna win this one going into the year. So it's taking a lot out of me to say the Bears are gonna win this one.
Kaline?
I know that Bears defense is decent. I see bounce back from Richardson, hand 28 the ball, and as a lifelong Lions fan, there's no way I can pick the Bears at any time.
That's all right, Texans and Vikings, of course. I'll go with the safe bet. Again, trying to pad that lead. I'll go with the Texans. Ben?
Yeah, we're locked up here so far.
No problem.
I'll take Vikes.
Awesome. Next up, Eagles and Saints. This should be where we differ, but I'm going with the Saints.
Ben? As much as it pains me, I had taken the Saints last week against the Cowboys. I'm gonna take the Saints this week, man. Until they can prove it. And really, to be frank, the big reason I'm doing it is because AJ Brown is still up in the air. Yeah. I don't know if AJ didn't play last week. It doesn't seem like he's going to play this week. We'll see. He wasn't at practice today. If AJ does play, the Eagles are going to win. I'm going to throw that caveat in there. If AJ plays, the Eagles are going to win. But right now, it doesn't look like he's on track. So I'm going to have the Saints win.
Okay. Kaline?
I don't think Derek Carr can have 3 games in a row like he's had the last 2. And I think the Eagles are just a better team. I will take Philly.
Okay. Chargers and Steelers. Now, Harbaugh's off to a hot start. Do I go with my boy Fields or do I go with my gut and say Harbaugh? And in this case, this season, my gut's been okay. I'm going with the Chargers. Ben?
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be a shame if we pick every game the same. I'm going Chargers. I have to ride with my guy Jim.
We might go every game the same. Kaline?
I will take the Chargers too. I think they're going to commit to the run, control the ball, and then when Herbert has to do something, he'll make a play. Chargers.
Awesome. Broncos and Buccaneers. This one I feel like is pretty cut and dry. Bo Nix did not look good last week. I'm going with the Buccaneers. Ben?
Yeah, I'm going with the Buccaneers as well. No.
I think Tampa Bay is probably the best team in the NFC right now, so I'll take
right now. No,
not bad. Packers and Titans. You'd be surprised. I'm going with the Packers.
Finally, I'm gonna, for the sake of switching it up and hopefully gaining a lead, we'll go with the Titans.
Packers for me. NFC North.
It's horrible, man. What they're doing to us. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Panthers and Raiders. I'm going with the Raiders. Now I will say I was thinking about it because Andy Dalton is coming back, but then I was like, Max Crosby.
No.
That's it. So Raiders. Ben?
Yes. Max Crosby. Raiders. Yeah. Andy Dalton, you go for it.
Yeah.
Well, can Andy Dalton also play cornerback as well as quarterback? Because they have a lot more problems with just the quarterback position. So I'm going Raiders.
Dolphins and Seahawks. Yeah. I'm going to go with the Seahawks here.
Ben? Oh my gosh, I'm going with the Seahawks.
We sound like it's like an echo chamber in here. Definitely Seahawks.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy because we talked about it off air. This is all ad-libbed. We don't plan this out. So we'll see. Hopefully we differ on this one. Okay. Lions and Cardinals. I'm going with the Cardinals. Ben?
Yeah, we're gonna differ. I'm assuming me and Kaline are gonna agree on this one. I'm going Lions.
Lions, definitely. Just another step to our Super Bowl.
There you go.
Super Bowl. Big expectations this year. Don't hate it. Ravens and Cowboys. I got the Cowboys on a bounce back week. Ben?
Real quick, I don't know when you talk about big expectations. You had the Bears winning 13 games in your record prediction.
But
I'm going
Oh,
Cowboys. Both teams, both both teams coming off of some rough losses. I just think the Cowboys right now have shown more life than the Ravens have. So I'm sadly going to pick the Cowboys.
Are they in Arlington or are they in Baltimore?
Arlington.
Cowboys.
Awesome. Yep. So Ben, you also went Cowboys, right? I'm sorry, I totally zoned out.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure I'm jotting it down right. By the way, thanks for throwing me under the bus. 49ers and Rams. Again, bounce back week. Rams look bad after all these injuries. Got to go with the 49ers. Ben?
Yeah, no, it's the Niners. It really comes down to all the injuries, like you were saying on the Rams. I think if the team was fully healthy, they had Puka, they had Kupp, and all their offensive linemen, John Johnson, and all those guys. I think it would have been a closer game. But with those injuries, it's really hard to pick this Rams team right now.
Kaline?
I'm going to take a divisional rivalry, Los Angeles Rams.
Oh,
there you go. Chiefs and Falcons. The Chiefs look like a complete beast right now, and it's hard to pick against them in any way, shape, or form. I have to go with the Chiefs because you can't count out Mahomes, and I can't believe the Eagles lost to Kirk Cousins. I can't fathom that idea. Ben, you gonna pick the team that just beat you against the Super Bowl champs? Reigning
thank you.
2 times. I just gotta rub it in.
That, Ryan. I appreciate that. No, I'm picking. Out of spite, did your team win this week? Out of spite, I might just pick the Falcons to lose every game the rest of the season, just because I can. Yes, the Chiefs.
Kaline,
gotta go the Chiefs.
Not bad.
Got
Jaguars and Bills at Bills. I'm sorry. I'm going with the Bills. A shocker, just because at the beginning of the season I was not big on the Bills, but they're making it happen this year, and I don't understand how, but they are.
When you have Josh Allen back there, and man, the Jags have been not looking good at all this season. I don't know. I mean, again, I think Doug will probably be fired before the season is over. I think with the pace they're on, the Bills.
Kaline?
Definitely Buffalo. Allen's playing great. I think he'll carry him.
Nice. And last but not least, Commanders and Bengals, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, I believe we have 2 Monday night games this week, and these are the last 2. So Jaguars and Bills, Commanders, Bengals, you can watch on Monday. But I will be taking the Bengals at home against the Commanders. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bengals as well. Again, I think it's only a matter of time until Daniels gets hurt. It is rough. He's taken some hits that he probably should slide on. He had to leave the game for a play or two. It's gonna get rough here, I think, for the Commanders. They better buckle down here soon.
Kaline?
Who day all the way? Joey B and the Bengals. I'm taking.
There you go.
Not bad, guys. Well, after that, normally we would do our pigskin payout episode segment. So I just want to let everybody know that this is not happening this week due to other circumstances. I'll just chalk it up to a time restraint at this point, just because we got a lot of College Corner to talk about, and let's dive straight into that instead.
Pro football isn't the only game in town. Let's take a stroll to Ben's College Corner.
So, lots of shaking up, huh? What are we thinking, Ben?
Again, going into last week, as I told you guys, there weren't a huge number of games to really watch heading into this prior week. That stood true for the most part. That being said, the segment's still going to be the same. We're going to kind of go over what had happened this prior week, a couple games to look forward to this week. Before we go ahead and do that, Kaline, you had mentioned you were at that Notre Dame Northern Illinois game.
Yes.
How was that? Could you tell the people a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, Northern Illinois. I mean, Notre Dame took the their first possession, drove right down and scored. So I was like, well, here we go. And Northern Illinois they dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage. They won the turnover battle. Riley was rattled running around, Riley Leonard, and Notre Dame didn't look good, and Northern Illinois looked like they belong, and they're ranked now. And I think, this weekend will really tell if they can bounce back, not have that an idle week. If they can handle their business and continue on, they could be a solid top 25 team possibly. Notre Dame demolished Purdue, so they're Notre Dame, so they're going to be ranked as long as they've only got one loss. But it was great. Notre Dame Stadium obviously is great, but Northern Illinois dominated them pretty much in every facet after that first possession.
Yeah, that game we were all together, me, Ryan, and our friend Matt. We were watching that game, and it was a shock. And again, Notre Dame, I know you cover them or do camera work for them, but Notre Dame will always find a way to kind of have one of those losses every year. Yeah. Hopefully it was not enough, to knock them out, but they really have to show up and show out the rest of the year if they want to make it in without having that conference championship under their belt.
Yeah.
So, but going and kind of covering everything that happened this past week of football, there are really three big things I want to touch on. And the first one you had already just touched on there. I mean, Purdue just got smacked. It did not look like it was a game from the get-go. I remember checking it at halftime, and they looked like that team that we would have hoped they would have looked like against Northern Illinois. It was not close.
Yeah.
So
it was tough.
It was, yeah. And then the big one that I'm really interested to see how this develops across the course of the season is Arch. Quinn Ewers had went out. I think it was an oblique injury. Again, the timetable on that was a little bit shorter than kind of what I think we expected. I think they're going to try to aim for him to be back before that Oklahoma game. But if Arch continues to ball out, again, I think they will put Quinn back in. But it is going to be really, really hard to pull Arch out if he balls out the way that he had, this past week. And for him to move the way he did was a little shocking. Mannings usually don't move like that.
Right.
But I wanted to get your guys' opinion on Arch and kind of that quarterback situation that may develop over the coming weeks.
Kaline?
Well, I think, first of all, it's amazing. Sarkisian has 2 of the top 10 quarterbacks in the the football championships or football bowl series, I say you shouldn't pull the guy because of injury, and he'll probably fight to get back, but you can't go wrong. If you want to stay with controversy, away from the controversy, you put Ewers back in, but because Arch's last name is Manning, there's going to be buzz about him regardless. But that team is complete. All 3 phases of the game: speed, power, special teams, poise, experience. They're going to be tough to beat, whoever the quarterback is.
I think, regarding Arch, unless you're worried about him transferring, I'm not necessarily as worried about this. I think that this is perfect for Texas. You get experience for your young guy who just so happens to look like the future. And then you have a projected first-round pick in Quinn Ewers, who's coming back off of the injury or out of injury, and now you're in an even better situation hypothetically, because now you finish the season out with this guy that you intended on playing this whole full season with, and then after he leaves for the draft, you develop the guy that started playing last year, and all of a sudden you're right back into that top 3 conversation. I think Texas is going to be in some good shape, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, how Arch does in the future.
Yep. Yeah, and really the really nice thing about having Arch back there is the fact that now you don't have to push Quinn in and kind of rush that timetable, because this maybe the timetable for him is going a little bit slower than what we had expected. You don't have to kind of push him to get back in the game, because you'll be just fine with Arch sitting back there at quarterback. Arch is not going to play back. Well, knock on wood, Arch probably will not play bad enough for you to be knocked out of the college football playoffs and chances this early into the season. They're really a real good situation for Texas. And again, have Arch, let him play a couple games. Once Quinn is healthy, throw him back in and pick up where you left off. As you were saying, this team really looks like, at least right now, like they're going to be the favorites to win it. AP agrees. They moved him up to 1. Sorry, Ryan. Hopefully OSU doesn't win anything. It's besides the point. And then the last big one here was Georgia. I remember looking down at my phone. I don't know what happened. I blew that game off. I'm like, it's Georgia. It's not even worth watching. Georgia is going to blow out Kentucky. Kentucky has not looked good thus far. They'd only had that one win. And Georgia squeaked out a victory, only winning 13-12 there. And if that play did not get called back, and it should have been called back because the ball did hit the ground and whatnot, we could have been looking at a very, very different game. And it's scary, man.
Kaline, did you watch that game?
I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, I did. My son is a Kentucky grad. He's a huge Cats fan. He had called me earlier in the day because I'm a Ball State grad, and they were at Miami. And he was giving me grief. He's like, man, your Cardinals are going to get stomped. I'm like, what are you talking about? You got Georgia coming into Commonwealth. I said, let's see who does better against the spread. And my team got beat 55-0.
Oh.
And the Cats did a little bit better. So it didn't surprise me that Kentucky could hang with them, but they usually hang with a team like that for 3 or 3.5 quarters, and they get run down at the end. So I think, Georgia's mortal, and they can have a bad day, and I think Kentucky's better than people are giving them credit for.
I think the biggest case for concern is that if you're Georgia, you play Texas in just a few weeks. Texas is very far away from Kentucky. And I'm not just talking distance, I'm talking performance as well. So I would be, hoping if I'm Georgia, I need a little bit more improvement week by week before we take on Quinn Ewers, hopefully, going into that. And if I'm Texas as well, going back to our previous conversation, not only does Texas play Oklahoma soon, but they again play Texas. And so if you're or not Texas, I'm sorry, they play Georgia. So if you're Texas, you're wanting Ewers back before those top matchups. And if not, at very least, you want him against Georgia. But I do think that I'm an absolute Georgia hater. I'll just come out and say it. So I was all ear, smiling ear to ear when it comes to that game. And so, when that happened, I was cool with it. It just didn't end the way that I wanted it to, but it'll happen sooner rather than later for Georgia, I think.
I think that might be good for them to get a test and a reality check early. So maybe that'll steel them a little bit and, help them get ready for a big game like Texas. We'll see in a week or two, I guess.
It's a good point.
Yes, exactly. Again, getting that reality check before you actually have to go and play one of those good teams.
Yep.
And now we'll dig into kind of the schedule, the 4 games I had set aside for you guys to watch this week. But before we get into that, Kaline, do you want to tell the people what you're doing this Saturday in terms of college football?
I will be back at Notre Dame Stadium on Moose Hoss Drive in South Bend, Indiana. The Miami, are they the Red Hawks now? Yeah, they're the Red Hawks, right?
Yeah.
The Miami of Ohio Red Hawks come a calling, and I don't think Notre Dame is going to be snoozing on their MAC opponent this week. I don't know what the spread is, and I don't get into that kind of things, those types of things. But just as far as a straight-up football game, I think Notre Dame is going to roll this weekend.
Yes, I agree. Hopefully they play as well as we hope, and we don't see another Northern Illinois situation here. Ryan, I had to throw this first game in here for you. Again, I touched on it last week when you weren't in here, but I feel like I should throw you a bone while you are here. The first game to watch here is Illinois ranked 24 versus Nebraska ranked 22. Personally, I think Nebraska will probably run away with this one. Matt Rule is building a team. That defense, they're playing old school football along the offensive lines. I will say that the Dylan Raiola stuff is kind of creeping me out a little bit. It's kind of weirded me out there. Yeah. But I felt like I had to throw in an Illinois game for you to throw you a bone after the trash I had talked about.
For those of you unfamiliar with that situation, so 2 weeks ago I picked Illinois to shock Kansas, and the two guys that I just so happened to be doing a podcast with that week, just kidding, but they just looked at me and they were like, "Sure, all right, guy, you're new to college football." And so, from there, I remember screenshotting the final score and just being like, they called me a madman. Like, so, I took pride on that one. I felt like I knew what I was talking about when, quite honestly, I mean, I did a little bit of research on it. I was like, cool, I think this could potentially happen. And that's pretty much how I said it on the podcast too. So I will say I've got a little bit of bias against Nebraska in this situation because of Raiola. I'm so creeped out on it that I want to root against him.
Watch.
He is fun to watch, but it's weird. And because of that, I like I said, I want to pick Illinois here. This would be the game to lose if you're Illinois, just because you're Illinois. But they're making noise this year. I mean, they are, and I could see them winning this one. I'm hoping that they win this one, but I can't predict it. You know what I mean? I can't sit here. If I were to predict it, I would probably say Nebraska is going to come out with the win. But I think it's going to be close. I'll give it that.
Yes. Kayla, do you have any predictions for the game?
I'm going to take the Huskers. I think Matt Rule's got those guys rolling. So maybe the Big Red has been awakened from their slumber from the last 20 years. So I'm going to take the Huskers.
I absolutely agree. And when Nebraska and their football team is rocking, it is, just completely different. They sell out for the Cornhuskers. It is something to witness. That is for sure. And for those who are a little confused about what we're talking about with the Raiola stuff, if you do a quick search on pretty much any social media platform, you can find it really quickly. He's trying to be Patrick Mahomes, and that's one thing, living up to kind of the idol of your generation, but it is almost to a creepy level, going down to the exact way he's warming up, going to the exact number and hairstyle and the way he dresses, and it's getting a little creepy.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next game, the game that I am extremely happy I'm not going to have my phone to watch. Like I said, I'm not going to be by my phone this weekend. It's going to be a nice getaway for me. USC versus Michigan, 11th ranked USC, Michigan ranked 18. I have been clamoring for Alex Orji to get some snaps at quarterback. Sean Moore had finally come out this week and said that Alex Orji will be the starting quarterback, so at least I can rejoice for that. I'm going to get ahead of myself here. I had already put down like $15 on USC to win, kind of hinging my happiness a little bit. Because if Michigan wins, then awesome, my team won. And if they don't,
$15 to see your team win. That's how I say.
Yeah, exactly. I paid $15 to see my team win, and if they don't, I made some money. But I really think Miller Moss is going to have another stellar performance. Miller Moss has looked fantastic, and we'll see what Alex Orji has to say about this Michigan offense. But as of right now, I'm picking USC to win this game.
So excited for this one as an Ohio State fan. Just want to throw that in there.
Oh, I bet you are. But hey, as Kaylin had mentioned, kind of previously, as before the podcast has started, I am a Michigan fan, but right now I can root for IU. This is the only time it's acceptable for me to root for another school, and I'll always have a special place in my heart for IU. Hold on a minute. As an IU.
Let me get this straight, okay? Because we've gone back and forth on this argument.
We're not gonna do this together.
No, I'm gonna do this right now. For years, this man has told me that I can't have more than one favorite team. Okay, that I cannot root for more than
I
one
go to
team.
school here. I go to IU. That's different.
Fine. That's awesome. But they're still in the Big Ten. And not only that, it's still two different teams. It's not Michigan. And, just wanted to point that out. Hey, we don't got to get into it too deep. I just wanted to point it out. You know what I mean? That it only applies to you. But it's okay.
It would be different if I was rooting for like Ohio State or Nebraska. And it's one thing to root for a team. It's another thing to have like a second favorite team, I think.
So you're saying really that Indiana is not a second favorite?
Yeah, I'm going to always root for IU. That's where I'm at. And I'm gonna.
I think you can have a second favorite, Ben. I allow that. I think that's fine.
Thank you.
Really, I'm not. I can't get behind rooting for like. I think it's okay to root for another team. But I think it's different than like owning merchandise and kind of parading that around.
My mentality about it, just because I know you're new to the argument, right, is that
this has been going on for years.
You can have a number one favorite and a number two favorite, and if these teams play each other, you got to root for that number one. Yes. You can't root for a tie or anything like that. You got to root for the number one, right? But I got a half and half Bears and Browns jersey in my closet because half my family's from Cleveland, and all of a sudden this man says that I can't do it. Like, yeah. Okay.
No, that wasn't what I was saying you can't do. It was the Notre Dame stuff that I said you couldn't do.
It's a basketball team. It rocks.
But anyways, if Michigan does lose, I can always fall back on Coach Sig and Rourke, and hopefully they will absolutely dominate that game. But that's besides the point. Do you guys have any thoughts on who's going to win this?
I want to. If we're still talking about Michigan USC, I'm feeling a reverse Rose Bowl curse. USC has to travel all the way to Michigan this time instead of Michigan or Ohio State going all the way to LA. I'm taking the Wolverines at home against the Trojans.
I would love that.
Everybody's picking USC. They're high flying and all that stuff. They've been known to lay eggs, and their defense is not great. So if Michigan runs the ball like they tend to do, if they can do it well, then I think they win.
I like it. Hey, I obviously am going to be rooting for USC, so I'm going to be picking USC. But I do like the take. I would like to, if it's a shocker, I like the underdogs and stuff. But what do we think?
Yep. And then the second to last game we got for you guys is 12th ranked Utah at Oak State, ranked 14. I think it's just going to be a really, really fun game to watch. But the big thing, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, and if you haven't, we'll go ahead and tell you. The average age of the quarterbacks for this game is higher than what the average age for the quarterbacks for the Colts and Bears game is going to be. It is with Cam Rising and with Bowman. They're both I think they're both like 25 or 26, something like that.
24, 25, yeah.
24. So it's just funny to see that there's still these 7th-year quarterbacks putting around after the COVID year and all the different red shirts and stuff. But I think Cam Rising is probably just going to do Cam Rising things and pull this one out. That's kind of what he does. But your guys' thoughts on that game?
I think Utah is just such a tough team wherever they go, wherever they play. I think they're going to go in to Stillwater and hit them in the mouth and win a close one.
I got biased towards Oklahoma State. So, I got family down there as well. Got family all over the place. But Oklahoma State, I mean, I just have a warm place in my heart for them. But I do know Utah's pretty tough.
Yep.
I will be rooting for Oklahoma State. I'm gonna, for once, opt out of picking another winner here.
Oh,
I just don't want to.
The path for Oak State to win this game is to just hand it off to Ollie Gordon and hope and pray that Ollie Gordon has a good game, because going into the season it was really between Ollie Gordon and Aston Jeanty about who's the best running back, and it was really a back and forth. But as we've seen, Aston Jeanty is just miles ahead of anyone in terms of that discussion. And then the last game this week, the game that I sadly cannot watch. Tennessee ranked 6 versus Oklahoma 15. Oklahoma has looked significantly better than I would have thought with Dylan Gabriel leaving. But right now, this Tennessee's offense is absolutely on fire. It's going to be really hard for me to pick anyone against Tennessee right now. And Nico is just slinging that rock. Nico is looking very, very good. And again, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. I know I'm absolutely butcher it. I've really tried to practice, but I'm still not at the point yet that I feel comfortable enough pronouncing his last name. But again, like I said, right now, this Tennessee's offense is just absolutely on fire, and I don't really know how many units in the country can stop him, maybe outside of Georgia. So,
I think it's interesting to see Josh Heupel go against his old Sooners that he led to the national championship. But Tennessee is just so complete on offense, and I think they will boom the Sooners. I think they'll take it.
I'm in the same exact boat. It's tough to, bet against Tennessee here. And, I think Tennessee's going to take this one as well. As much as I like Oklahoma, but, Tennessee.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of the outlook on college football this week. If you guys have any games to add, now's the time to do it. But if not, we can go ahead and wrap this thing up.
All right. So I just want to say thank you for coming on to the podcast. Obviously, you're more than welcome to anytime. Again, it's been an absolute blast, and I look forward to from hearing from you for your future games that you're going to be working and stuff, and the stories that you'll be able to tell. By all means, by the way, send me some pictures, man. This is going to be sweet to be able to see where you're at. But I do appreciate you. We talked for 10 minutes at the game on that Friday, and you being able to, feel comfortable reaching out and doing something like this means the world to me, means the world to Ben as well. So, our sincerest thank you for hopping on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you guys. It was a blast listening to you guys talk, and it's always fun talking ball. So come back anytime, and good luck with the rest of the season, guys.
I appreciate it. So we're going to keep you here in the studio. We're going to wrap this thing up, and then we'll talk to you a little bit after the stream. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. So that was awesome. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that is tuning in. We've got 35 viewers right now, which is pretty awesome for our live stream. And then to anybody else that's listening after the fact when we put this out on streaming platforms, I just want to say thank you as well. If you haven't yet, please give us a follow on any of our socials. Primarily, X is going to be the one that we use primarily for any kind of breaking news or anything like that.
If you guys are interested in terms of pigskin payout, keep an eye on it on TikTok. Something will probably get posted there in terms of that. So.
Yeah. I also intend on doing that. We'll do our takes there, and then Twitter as well, or X, I guess. So just be aware of that if you guys are interested in something like that. But Ben, any closing comments?
No. Hopefully the Eagles can bounce back. Hopefully Alex Orji looks as good as I personally hope that he looks. And it was great having you back on. See you guys. This Ryan's way better doing the outro than I am. I apologize for our sponsors as well. Perhaps during that.
Yeah.
But,
so
I want to thank Kaline for coming on. It was awesome.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. And I just want to say that my Bears takes will be back next week. I kind of put it on the back burner this week just to try and lighten up the mood and have a little bit more fun, because there's a lot of arguments that I'm seeing on Twitter, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can pull out a win, be 2-1, and be in good shape. So good luck to everybody else's teams except for you, Colts. This has been the Pigskin Project. We want to thank Uppercuts Grooming in Valparaiso, Indiana, Regional Radio Sports Network, and Spotify for Podcasters for helping us grow as a podcast. Of course, Kaline Schounce, thank you for popping on the podcast. Greatly appreciate you. And until next time, we will see you next week, actually. This has been the Pigskin Project.